Thanks for staying with us on The Real Story. Remembering a giant in Connecticut politics. Former Governor Lowell Weicker passed away last week at the age of 92 years old. His family says after battling a short illness. Weicker marched to the beat of his own drum and did not subscribe to strictly following party politics. Here's a look back at his legacy.
They are telling me 7 and 8 to 1, Representative Smoko. I don't want it.
You're never going to arrive at that point where we're going to get a majority of people out there. It just isn't the way it's going to work. This is that tough time for all of us that are leaders.
Lowell Weicker was a political maverick carving his way through Connecticut politics. After serving as Greenwich's first selectman in the early 1960s, he was elected to the Connecticut General Assembly before being elected to Congress. A split among Democrats in 1970 led to Weicker, a Republican, being elected to the U.S. Senate. He was the last surviving member of the Senate Watergate hearings investigating the actions of Richard Nixon. Weicker briefly ran for president in 1980. Later on, he pointed with pride to the fact that he had never been invited to the Reagan White House, despite their shared party affiliation. He fought against apartheid in South Africa and was on the front lines of increasing funding for AIDS treatments. He also championed the rights of the disabled. Weicker lost a contentious race against Joe Lieberman in 1988, where he was portrayed as a bear sleeping in a cave. 2 years later, after quitting the Republican Party, Weicker ran for governor as an independent. He ran in a three-way race with Republican John Rowland and Democrat Bruce Morrison. He won 40% of the vote, drawing from traditional Democratic strongholds and constituencies. Heavily criticized for bringing the income tax to the state, he said it was necessary to bring financial stability. He signed legislation extending civil rights protections to gay men and lesbians. After leaving office in 1994, he made occasional headlines, floating the idea of running for his old Senate seat in 2006 and supporting Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012. Weicker will be remembered for blazing his own path and seeking to protect the disenfranchised.
I joined him after the Watergate Committee, and obviously that was where he got national fame, was serving on the Watergate Committee, putting country ahead of party. At that time, the first one of the Republicans on the Senate Watergate Committee to do so. Others like Howard Baker joined him eventually and called for Richard Nixon's impeachment. But what you saw there from Lowell Weicker is the person he was. He was somebody who put the people he served ahead of party and anything else, and always was looking out for the people who had no or little voice. What he advocated for research, HIV research, the American Disabilities Act, which he authored and was passed after he had left the Senate. What he had done for so many people, and for those, as I say, who did not otherwise have a representative, a voice to be heard.
That was his former chief of staff and former U.S. Attorney Stan Twardy right there, who we spoke with earlier last week, remembering Lowell Weicker. Here with me right now is Ken Dixon, politics and government reporter for Hearst CT Media. Thank you so much for being here, and so good to see you.
Same here, Jen.
Okay, so Ken, you covered Lowell Weicker. Tell me, when was it when he was governor? Did you cover him when he was U.S. Senator?
Yeah, I was a little young. I was still in college when he was in the Senate, but I was writing a column for the Connecticut Post from 1990 through 94 when he was governor. So I was actually one of the few column writers who were in favor of the income tax because Bridgeport needed social spending.
Okay, interesting. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But first of all, I saw when you tweeted and put on your social media that he had passed away. You called him larger than life. Why was he larger than life?
Oh, 6'6", he wanted everything his own way. He'd take over a room. It was brutal and beautiful, and that doesn't exist anymore.
So he had a presence.
Yeah.
What was he like dealing with as a reporter? Was he brisk with you? Was he?
Lawyers, you can say anything to a lawyer and they'll say anything back to you, it's give and take, but reporters are basically flies, kind of buzzing around him.
So he didn't give necessarily a lot of attention, but
He
answered your
certainly
question.
didn't care, but yeah. You know.
Okay. And now you were there right for the, the sweet spot of the income tax, as you were just saying. So were you a columnist then?
Yeah,
And you could give an opinion about being supportive of it at that time.
Yeah, I was at the Capitol for the rally that day when he sauntered over from the state office building and made his presence known to 40,000 screaming anti-tax people.
Okay, well, that's one of my questions right here. I was going to say, were you there when Lowell Weicker walked through that crowd, gave his security a heart attack, and tell me what that was like and what you saw?
The crowd was milling around. They were chanting. It was dramatic, but it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't like a world wrestling entertainment match.
It was still civil.
Well, I think people were, launching spit in his general direction.
Oh my gosh!
Some people, yeah.
And he didn't even flinch.
No, because he had the security there.
What do you think he was trying to accomplish by walking through that crowd? Was that just, I'm doing it and I don't care?
That's kind of like that's the epitome of Lowell Weicker. Yeah, he was going to do it his way, and he lucked into becoming governor because it was a three-way race. He only won by like 32,000 votes in a three-way. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I know I was reading more about him, and he told his staff. Apparently, according to this article, I don't have to be a two-term governor. This is more important than my career. So, he said when he was taking office, I mean, the state's finances were in really, really bad shape. It was not an option, according to the article that I was reading, that he wanted to do, but he felt like it was the only way to save Connecticut. And you felt that way at the time as well.
Yeah, I did, but it was very convenient for him to run saying that it would be like pouring gasoline on a fire, and then when he becomes the fire chief, he, has the gasoline. It was a way to get out of it. The fiscal problems. It was a $7 billion budget. It, like 14, 15, two-year budget. We're up to 51 billion now.
Okay. Yep.
30 years later.
So now you've been obviously covering this ever since. So the income tax has been such an issue, I feel like, throughout the years. I mean, we had, who was it? Bob Stefanowski wanted to get rid of the income tax, which would have been really obviously difficult given our state structure and how much we rely on it. But talk about the impact over the years of that and of implementing that and where we are now.
Well, it's allowed us to spend more money. Certainly, it set us up for the windfall of COVID when sales and income taxes increased from the influx of out-of-staters who moved to Western Connecticut. Right.
He also struck a deal with the casinos that we benefit from today, right? He got us those slot revenues that are still quite lucrative for the state of Connecticut. He set that up.
Yes, the slot revenues. He built the tennis center in New Haven because he was a tennis fan. Of course, it's a musical venue.
Yep.
Gay rights. The first military-style assault weapon ban in Connecticut. 1991. First time I met Dick Blumenthal was covering that court case in Litchfield because one of the lawyers wanted to do it in that old crazy Litchfield courthouse. Great legacy. And, he was a rich kid. He was an heir like Ned Lamont. But he came up through the traditional Board of Selectmen, State House, U.S. House, Senate.
And he made his way up.
People, especially Republicans kind of want to start at the top now too.
He obviously, was a moderate Republican. He ran for a third-party candidate. He marched to the beat of his own drum, as we said, and you saw during Watergate that he didn't care about staying in line with the party. He did what he thought needed to happen. What's the message for lawmakers and just us in general, our society? Because that's not something that you always see. People will say that they might do that, but it's a lot harder the way our two-party system is. He didn't care.
And I think the party bosses might reel in people that way, but now certainly things are more, black and white, partisan. to a crazy extent. But he was also an heir to a pharmaceutical fortune, and so he could do whatever he wanted. And the fact that he became a public service icon in the state is one of the memorable things about covering him. I was thinking about something on the way over here.
Yep.
He appeared in the Connecticut Grand Opera as a supernumerary.
Really?
Which is like an extra, like carrying a sword or something when he was governor, and I think that's hilarious.
That is funny. Just something he was interested in. He just wanted to do it.
I expect he liked opera, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, there you go. Well, he no doubt has a legacy here in Connecticut. Obviously, he was before my time, but he was one of the first people that I heard a lot about when I started really paying attention to Connecticut politics. Ken, it was a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for reflecting back on covering him.
Sure, Jen.
You are a wealth of knowledge, and we appreciate you
I don't know
coming
about
on.
that. Don't call me old.
I did not call you old. I would never. Okay, we have more on Lowell Weicker Jr.'s life and legacy at fox61.com or on the Fox 61 News app, where you can watch all of these segments again. And of course, watch The Real Story every Sunday at 10 a.m. right here on Fox 61 and streaming on Fox 61 Plus. Veteran is what I would call you, veteran journalist. Have a great morning.